The idea here is, sure, you're going to have a little bit of a test at 67,000 Pierce, but the longer we've now consolidated, I think this is going to go higher. Remember, we did the measurement prior for this pattern formation, and it really has us going up to this trend line where we connect this former pivot down. Notice again how literally every high right in here, high pivot, high pivot, high pivot, high pivot, goes right along there. That's your target. So that's what I'm looking at. I still love Bitcoin longer term. Like if you ask me 5 years out, do I think Bitcoin's at a new high? I do.
As I continue to say, over the coming weeks, I do not think that we will be talking much about Sailor. And the greatest cure for all of these problems is if the Bitcoin bull market commences. If Bitcoin's trading at 70, 75, 80, 85, $100,000, STRC will likely float to par. Strategy stock will go up.
Bitcoin is standing at a crossroads right now, and the next few weeks could decide everything. Gareth Soloway, chief market strategist at Verified Investing, is watching the psychologically important $50,000 level closely. He says it's still possible Bitcoin revisits that area before establishing a major long-term bottom. But his short-term outlook points higher, with upside towards $71,000 to $72,000. After that, he says we'll need to watch how the market reacts. Meanwhile, big money is making its move. Large traders in crypto derivatives are placing bullish bets on Bitcoin hitting around $72,000 by July 31st, timed with the Federal Reserve's policy meeting. They're using bull call spreads, buying calls at $70,000 and selling at $72,000, reflecting $2.5 billion in exposure. Soloway's own analysis stays short-term focused, but zooms out, and his conviction is clear. He still loves Bitcoin for the long haul. And if you ask him where it'll be in 5 years, he's confident it will be at new all-time highs. One technical analyst backs that view with history. Bitcoin has bounced back from every midterm bear market in 2014, 2018, 2022, and now 2026, and he expects new all-time highs again within 3 years. He's been warning that the market bottom has not yet formed. His message: stay tuned, get ready to be brave, and get ready to buy. You'll be happy when Bitcoin is over $200,000 in 2029. Before you dive in, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We're building Bitcoin Frontier Hub one subscriber at a time, and we're closing in on our first 1,000. Join the community today.
Let's get into the charts here. Bitcoin, a lot of people will look at this and say, oh, this is a bear flag. And potentially they could be somewhat right, although it's a little unusual to have a lower low here. Usually bear flags would be like this, right? You would go like this, like the former pattern here. Notice how this low here was the low. All right, so this is one of the reasons why near term, at least, I'm bullish, is because you had your fall. This was a little bit of a bear flag here, and then it played out. Now you actually have made potentially a newer move, which is forming bullish. So notice how right here, and this is a really, really important educational point, is when you have a drop for a bear flag, you really want to have low, higher, low, higher, low, and that creates your inside bar consolidation, which then eventually plays out to the downside. Here, we had a low, and we've made a lower low. Now, most people say, oh, well, it's a lower, that's actually, but it doesn't fit the ideal position of a bear flag. Little things like that matter, guys. I mean, this is the nuance of being one of the great traders, is if you're going to get there, you got to know these things. Now, one of the things I really like here, we talked about in the past, you have kind of this inverse head and shoulders, shoulder, potentially head and shoulder maybe forming, but I even just like the simplicity of cup and handle pattern here. And this is a really bullish chart, guys. This is a really bullish chart near term on Bitcoin. Now, you're going to have resistance right here, right? So, I mean, right around 67,000, this high pivot, that's going to be short-term resistance. But the longer this consolidates, it builds energy to be able to blow through that. Now, you might get a small pullback, but again, and this is another important point, right? When you have a resistance trend line, all right, when you kind of do this, right, where you come down and you come up here and then you go like this is forming a bull flag or cup and handle, right? And the longer this goes sideways, the more energy. Think about it like you're at the gas station and you're filling your tank up, right? So the idea here is that if you just got a candle or two to fill up, that's the equivalent of maybe getting in a gallon of gas or a liter of gas, whatever, wherever you are in the world, whatever metric you want to use. But the longer you consolidate, you're really able to put in a ton of gas. The longer, the better in terms of refueling, because the idea is that once you get started on your journey, the more you've refueled, the more you can surge to the upside. And that's really what we're starting to see. Let me get rid of that right here. All right. So the idea here is, sure, you're going to have a little bit of a test at 67,000 Pierce, but the longer we've now consolidated, I think this is going to go higher. Remember, we did the measurement prior for this pattern formation, and it really has us going up to this trend line where we connect this former pivot down. Notice again how literally every high right in here, high pivot, high pivot, high pivot, high pivot, goes right along there. That's your target. So that's what I'm looking at. Now, listen, am I saying we're in a new bull market paradigm and we're going to all-time highs? No, I'm not saying that. And I think we have to be realistic, right? Everything for me is generally shorter term. Now, I still love Bitcoin longer term. Like if you ask me 5 years out, do I think Bitcoin's at a new high? I do. But shorter term, I'm not convinced that the low is in yet because we haven't made on the bigger time frame higher lows. We're still making lower lows. And that's really how you analyze it, right? So another important kind of analysis technique is, when you're looking at the short-term daily chart, you're looking at a swing trade. That's going to be a swing trade. It's going to play out over the next couple months or maybe next couple weeks. But really further out than that, that's not going to be helpful. But when we go to the weekly chart, we look at the bigger structure of the chart. And you could see high, lower high, lower high, low, lower low, and even here was a lower low. And so you're still in a downtrend. We haven't taken out this former high here to make a higher high. So we can't say that, oh, we're now in an uptrend. In addition, I'm still stuck on the fact that you have the even number of 50,000 here, and that may still need to go down. So short-term upside to the approximate level of 72,000. And then we have to see, we could end up heading back down to, let's say, 50,000 or so before we put in a major bottom.
Something just shifted its strategy for the first time in years, and every Bitcoin holder should be paying attention right now. Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of All Streets, points out that strategy has increased its US dollar reserve by $225 million. The company now holds a Bitcoin reserve of 843,775 BTC, along with $3.2 billion in cash reserves. For years, Strategy's identity was one trade: buy Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, never sell. So when the company, formerly known as MicroStrategy, skips a week of buying and quietly trims its stack, that's worth watching closely. Strategy pulled in $225 million by selling 3,588 BTC for $216 million, weighing its risk-to-reward ratio. The firm now sits on $3 billion in cash, enough to cover obligations for 20 months. Melker believes the Michael Saylor talk will fade soon because the fix is simple: keep the Bitcoin bull market going. If Bitcoin climbs to $70,000, $75,000, $80,000, $85,000, or even $100,000, Melker says Strategy's preferred stock, STRC, would trade back toward par. The stock price would rise, and obligations would ease. History backs this up. When Bitcoin rallies, MSTR often outperforms it, with projections pointing to a 75% plus jump toward $100,000. Let's get back to the video.
Strategy increases USD reserve by $225 million, now holds Bitcoin reserve of 843,775 and USD reserve of $3.2 billion. So listen, we know that the market has been trying to price what Strategy will do, as some of my guests have said in the past. At this point, I think people just wanted to know that Saylor and Strategy were not irrational actors, and clearly they're proving that to the market right now by raising enough cash to cover all of their obligations. This now puts 22 months of payments covered by a $3.2 billion cash reserve. Now, listen, if we're being honest, like the man obviously said that cash was trash for years. $3.2 billion is quite a sizable recycling bin. But the fact is, this is what the market wants to see. He is now basically out of the market as a Bitcoin buyer. Nobody's expecting him to buy Bitcoin anymore. And the price has still continued to float up, which I think is a very positive narrative, because obviously bears were saying that he was the only buyer in the market, that the floor at 60,000 was going to drop right out if he stopped buying. Now nobody expects him to buy anymore. Now, the question obviously is, what does this mean for MicroStrategy shareholders? Because this is, by any metric, very slight dilution to sell shares to raise cash. But right now, Michael Saylor has ceased to be the main character in the market, which in my humble opinion is very, very good news. As I continue to say, over the coming weeks, I do not think that we will be talking much about Saylor. And the greatest cure for all of these problems is if the Bitcoin bull market commences. If Bitcoin's trading at 70, 75, 80, 85, $100,000, STRC will likely float to par. Strategy stock will go up. All of their obligations will effectively go down, and we won't be talking about this anymore. And Morgan Stanley was largely out of the crypto space for a very, very long time, and I think made a splash a few months ago when they announced that they were launching a Bitcoin spot ETF, because generally they are not an ETF issuer. But as I've told you on this show before, what Morgan Stanley was interested in was keeping the walls closed and not having capital flight out of their account. So why would they want to send their customers to buy a BlackRock spot ETF and pass that money on to BlackRock if they can do it themselves? They have tens of thousands of advisors and salespeople out on the streets who, even if they didn't capture retail interest, they would be able to get the Morgan Stanley customers to stay within Morgan Stanley, buy that ETF, collect the fees, and not pass them on. But interestingly, you'll remember that they came in with extremely low fees, undercutting the entire market, meaning that they also wanted to compete for retail if the market ever ramped up again massively, which I think everybody in crypto believes it will do. Well, now they're following through with more plans here, relatively low fees for trading, and making sure that those Morgan Stanley customers don't exit and send their money over to Coinbase, because we know that that money never comes back. So yes, it's only Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, but we can assume that this is the beginning of a much broader trend of companies like this. We've seen it with Schwab, that formerly did not offer crypto to their customers, wholesale offering crypto to their customers. Now, interestingly, you cannot deposit and withdraw from the platform. So this is a very small ecosystem where you're going to keep your assets. They will be in a separate account, not FDIC insured from the securities that are in these accounts. So there are a lot of things here still to work through as to how it's going to actually work. But really, really big news. I think that the entire world now, if they didn't have access before, they are getting access through all of the accounts and platforms that they're familiar with to be able to trade our beloved crypto asset.
Bitcoin continues to test the patience of investors. But every cycle has reminded the market that major opportunities often appear when confidence is at its lowest. While short-term price swings can create uncertainty, Bitcoin has repeatedly shown the ability to recover over time. If history follows a similar path again, today's fear could become tomorrow's opportunity. Stay focused, manage your risk, and keep watching Bitcoin closely, because the next big move could reward those who remain patient. Do you think Bitcoin will reach a new all-time high before 2029? If you enjoyed this Bitcoin update, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss the latest Bitcoin news and market analysis. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.